Mayor, Council, my name is Jeff Schottler. I live at 2420 Calico Court, Farmington. Couple things, I guess. Congratulations to the fire tonight for transferring to a full-time staff. It's going to be needed as we grow in the city. Tonight, you guys interviewed several candidates for Planning Commission. I know you guys take it seriously. It's been a long day, probably 8-hour day for you guys, and it's still going. I hope you can choose people that also have residential views in mind, not just aligned with your views. You were elected by the residents to represent our voice, and you're now appointing people to align with your views, but also to help represent our voices. I know personally some of the applicants that you have and their experience and how professional and the knowledge that they could bring to the table. They've also stood at this podium too. I hope that that doesn't disqualify them. I hope it makes them honest, serious candidates. I don't know all of them. I'm sure you had some great ones. It's an important thing to give a diverse group of people, not just people that are like-minded and on the same track as you. That's my point on that. Second thing, I guess, is I understand there's no application on the table. There's nothing to consider or talk about, but there is. You have residents here. We are your people, and we're concerned and we're scared. Look at the proposal that Tract gave to Cannon Falls. They gave them 200-foot buffers. They didn't have to ask for it. There's things that could be improved that you could talk about with Tract still, that you could mention, hey, these are concerns of ours. There's plenty of time to work on things, to discuss it. You work at every angle for your budget. You go over thousands of pages of data. You look at all the numbers. We're begging you to put a little more time into this. If you're gonna stick with that, this is proper rezoning and it fits into the areas which a lot of us disagree with, continue to work on the setbacks and the buffers and the things that are affecting us. Have them adjust this project. They can move buildings around to give more space without losing square footage. I've said that time and time again. There needs to be some work done on it. It just isn't by no means acceptable to anybody. What if they put this in Charleswood? What if every single piece of land in Farmington comes for sale? What if it goes right next to Charleswood? What if it surrounds Vermilion Commons? What if it goes right in front of Vita Ativa? Those people will then be the next group of people here to argue it. So that goes to my third thing. Take a look at your ordinances and your zoning and talk about them seriously and update them. You know, your current ordinance it says it can go 40 feet away from residential. That's crazy close. The buildings would be taller than they would be farther. Take a look at that. How do we get that as residents on the table to protect the rest of the city, the other neighborhoods, your neighborhoods, the new neighborhoods, the future planning that we're doing? How do we get a way to keep a buffer that's acceptable for residents, but still, so that's guidelines and acceptable for developers to still want to come in and do it and not end up with these arguments? So I got some way, somehow I'd like to see a discussion made about that, getting these things put into ordinance so that this isn't a fight every time with your residents. None of us feel good about it that are doing it. I'm sure you guys don't feel good about it. So I hope some way there can be a difference made to where you can listen to the residents and work with us a little bit. And happy holidays. Enjoy your Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy Arsted, Beaumont Avenue. I'm starting with a genuine compliment to the person at the city who creates the Halloween tour and the Holiday Lights tour. It adds good to Farmington, it brings joy, community, and it shows the best of us. And a huge shout out to the amazing residents who go all out with those displays. Even beyond any food donations collected, these families are giving joy to humanity. This is a beautiful thing. My daughter and I went on the Halloween tour this year, and we were blown away. Every house was bigger and better than the last. We had to park for several minutes at several of them just to get to see all the scenery. It showed how creative, spirited, and generous people are in Farmington. It was really great. So that's a genuine compliment. Over in Executive Estates, there was a giant skeleton reaching for a huge cat skeleton on a roof. It was adorable. Full-size horse skeletons, ghost talking in the windows. If you haven't gone on these tours, please do it. We plan to go on the holiday tour this next week. But we did visit the synchronized cul-de-sac with the coordinated homes. I know Holly is a part of that, and it was really cool. And hats off to all the people on that street. Very cool. As I watched it, I thought about how much fun it must have been to collaborate with those neighbors. How meaningful it must be to come together as a community, people on your street with all kinds of beliefs, different backgrounds and political opinions, and yet unified in doing something good. Those neighbors did something good. And I thought about how similar it is to the residents near the data center, my neighborhood. Because we too are neighbors who came together. We were brought together not for something not fun, but something devastating. We are viewed as necessary collateral damage, and we are now deemed the enemy. But we are just as awesome as the people on that cul-de-sac, just as creative and kind, just as invested in our families and our neighborhoods. We want to do something good too. We want to protect our homes and protect our community. Unfortunately, our version of coming together is not so festive. I also thought about how a synchronized holiday display on Calico Court will be in a few years. Not quite the same. Not with industrial construction noise and the bright construction lights flanking the homes. Nobody will want to see that. But thank you truly to those awesome families in Farmington. Great job. Last meeting, Holly, you said something I agree with. You talked about budget discussions and said the council had to embrace the uncomfortable. You acknowledge the discomfort of talking about money and raising taxes, but you face it anyway. Tonight, I'm asking you all to keep embracing that uncomfortable. We need to talk about Farmington's outdated MUSI zoning code, even with lawsuits, even when it's inconvenient. These discussions are necessary to protect every resident in Farmington, north, south, east, and west of the city. Right now, your code treats data centers as a simple permitted use, meaning a developer can walk in the door with a project and get an instant yes. These large, high-impact industrial plants don't belong in permitted MUSI zoning. They clearly belong in industrial. Another concern is Farmington has no design standards for data centers. There are no standards for building design, scale, placement of mechanical equipment, no noise standards for their massive generator yards, no screening or buffering requirements to protect nearby neighborhoods, no lighting limits to prevent night sky pollution, no requirements addressing heat exhaust, vibration, or environmental impacts. All things you would want for your neighborhoods. All residents need this. With the NDAs this city likes to sign, you have done so several times. They allow projects to sneak in and get quickly set up, like this one with Tract, that you allowed to come in. So the uncomfortable conversations need to continue. I would request two actions. First, remove data centers from the permitted use list, put them in industrial zoning. And second, begin the creation of design standards for any future data center proposal. So that is my question for your attorney, please. How do we as residents formally request that the city begin this process? How do we get you to initiate a code update for data centers and work on design standards for all the residents of Farmington? My wish this Christmas and for New Year's is for softened hearts. Thank you.
I'm Kathy Johnson. I live on Bering Avenue in Farmington. I was asked to testify at the Attorney General's advisory task force on the future of Minnesota waters. That was 2 weeks ago. I believe I was asked in recognition of the work which the Coalition for Responsible Data Center Development has done over the last year and a half. Getting the word out about the issues with data centers is tough, especially when local governing unit employees have signed non-disclosure agreements with out-of-state predatory developers. It's a template happening all over Minnesota and all over the country. The Coalition has earned the reputation for being a research-based nonprofit, which is working to enlighten the public about the problems of hyperscale data centers as they're coming into our state. We're telling the average person's story about a David and Goliath situation based on research from investigative reporters in various news organizations, on research from universities who are following this enormous and complicated issue. Please visit our website, nodatacenter.com, and use our library of research to help answer questions you may have. One statement which really resonated with me last Tuesday in the Attorney General's Advisory Committee meeting was the statement that the speed of governance is slower than the speed of technological industrial development. That phenomenon is exactly how Farmington finds itself in the middle of a lawsuit. You said yes, because governance is slower than technology. Our coalition has turned to the judiciary to protect citizens against developers who promised over 200 permanent jobs. Yet jobs promised versus jobs actually created is one of those things which are hidden behind NDAs. In Good Jobs First article of November 2025, cloudy data, costly deals, how poorly states disclose data center subsidies. Investigators compared job creation to the cost of tax exemptions. The finding, every permanent job in a data center in Illinois cost $1.4 million in data center tax abatement. Nevada, $2.1 million. Google in Ohio, $1.4 million. Yes, that is the cost per one permanent job created. And temporary upfront construction jobs, the highly skilled construction jobs, again from the same article, are often done by out-of-state crews that follow the data center construction circuit. Developers also promised investment in the community. That's private investment and private profit. Ask your city officials, where is the community benefit analysis in this town? After all this time, I'm shocked there hasn't been more concrete information about that. I wonder how long Minnesota will be keeping those tax exemptions at the current levels. I can guarantee you it's certainly something being discussed. When the states that are now currently saturated in the data center business are losing between 52 and 70 cents on every dollar they tax exempt. I got a scary earful and eyeful at that task force meeting, especially about the fact that our water is certainly not the priority of data center developers who want to use Minnesota's most precious resource in their giveaway to lure data centers and end users to the site. That pads their own pockets, not the city's. I invite you to attend, and I invite the public to attend, a public meeting on January 20th at the Public Library in Farmington at 7 o'clock. We will be presenting either in person or in a recorded presentation about environmental and other issues around data centers and answer questions about our coalition, what we're doing, why we're suing the city. Please follow us on Facebook. I invite you to educate yourself about what's not going to be a panacea for Farmington. Stand with all of us and keep data centers in their place. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Peregrino. My first hope for today, before I disclose my address, is that I hope that this useful information for all of you isn't tuned out. I hope it's not just white noise that goes in the background. I hope that you're paying attention and that you honestly follow up with the suggestions that we offer. I used to live a little over 6 months ago, less than a mile away from the planned data center on the Fountain Valley Golf Course. I lived in Park Place, but I have since moved. I moved to 17218 Finch Path over in the Bermuda Triangle. So my address is still listed as Farmington, but I've been a member of this respected group, the Coalition for Responsible Data Center Development, for over a year now. Why am I a part of this group if I move that far away? It takes about 12 minutes to get from where I used to live to where I live now, next to my sister. I'm part of this group because all of the information that they've researched, that we've researched together, all of us, has been well-founded. It's well-researched. We have resources dependable, reputable resources for all of the information that we put out. We share the same resources, and it's based in facts and research. So again, like Kathy said, I hope that you check out our website, because there's just a treasure trove of information and about hyperscale data centers and their effects. What I want to share with you is the effects of this data center that's planned, should it be built, is that it won't respect boundaries. The air that's affected, we all share the air. It might be worse where the people who have it in their backyard live, but air flow does not recognize boundaries. We all share the same aquifer. So even though wells of our friends and neighbors may run dry and farmers may have problems, we'll all be affected because we all share the same aquifer. So here are just a few of my concerns. We'll start with water and wells and water usage. One example is that Amazon has come to the state's eastern farmland, worsening a water pollution problem that's been linked to cancer and miscarriages. That's from Rolling Stone in November of 25. Another closer to home, a recent report published by the Alliance of Great Lakes titled Finite Resources assesses threats to water in the Great Lakes region. They say, if states, local governments, and economic development agencies do not begin incorporating water availability and demand into their decision-making processes, it may lead the region down a dangerous, unsustainable, and inefficient water use path that impacts drinking water supplies, businesses, and food production. The report highlights a lack of understanding about natural resource extraction and consumption, indicating that the use of non-disclosure agreements, lack of water use reporting requirements, and gaps in existing state water management laws all pose challenges for state and local governments, due largely to efforts made by developers. In the current plan, we're all tied into that city water supply. So speaking of water quality, what about the nitrates and PFAS that we'll have to deal with when this goes through? We already have a PFAS problem. What about dry wells? We know that these are byproducts of hyperscale data centers and the neighbors nearby. And what about the air? In Virginia's data center alley, backup gas power generators are causing an estimated 14,000 cases of asthma symptoms. If the generators were operating at just 10% of the allowable pollution level, the public health cost from these emissions would be between $220 million and $300 million per year. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency believes that by 2030, AI data centers will create a national public health cost exceeding $20 billion. And then there's electricity. The amount of power used by data centers has tripled over the past decade and could triple again by 2028. The risk of power outages will only grow as new data centers come online, the NERC forecast in a December report, according to that. Nearly all of the United States will face higher risks of energy shortfalls over the next 5 to 10 years, that report said, and that's from Reuters. The explosive growth of data centers could threaten the stability of the electrical grid this winter, according to an industry overseer. So this is Minnesota. What will we do? Across North America, demand for electricity this winter is expected to be 2.5% higher than last year, for a total of 20 gigawatts. And that is according to the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, the NERC that I referenced earlier. And they said that in a report that was released in November, the end of November. So what about our winter and the power grid with multiple hyperscale data centers? What if we have many of them? What about all the air pollution that will run between all of us? Because we know that there are many more planned for Dakota County alone, and that's frightening. So with our power grid, events, and this refers back to in Quebec, there was a 1998 eastern ice storm, And if we're talking about electric problems or the failure of the electric grid, back in that time, there was an ice storm that left 1.4 million Quebecers without electricity or without power for up to a month. That was in the winter. That could happen here, because blackouts and brownouts are part of the prediction of all of this massive use of power. So,
I'm going to ask you to button it up here at the
Okay.
end. I'm letting you run a little bit long, but be
yeah,
respectful
let me
of the
just
others.
finish this here. I just want to point out, we are all affected. So my question for you, whose side are you on? The billionaires that benefit from all the tax breaks that we citizens make happen? They don't care about you. They don't care about us. Their goal is to collect their money and get out, leaving us with damaged rivers, damaged aquifers, respiratory problems, health-related problems, weakened power grids, skyrocketing electric bills, contaminated water. Or are you on the side of the citizens of Farmington and Dakota County, the citizens that you were elected to represent and protect? We will all experience potential brownouts and blackouts. We will all experience our electric bills skyrocket. We will all experience exposure to air pollutants. We will all experience water shortages. These data centers will cause water wars and likely affect our water supply. So ultimately, whose side are you on?
My name is Terry Pearson, 2475 227th Street West. Since the Farmington City Council hasn't or won't respond to our pleas, my last speech for this year is for those of you who are watching us online. Our country is under siege by billion-dollar tech companies that are in a race to provide for the gluttonous appetites of artificial intelligence. Concerned citizens all across the U.S. are pushing back because the hyper data centers use as much water and electricity as an entire city every day. The promise of jobs is hollow. Construction jobs may last a year or two, but in the end, only a handful of people are needed to watch over the computers. I also question the ROI, return on investment, of these data centers. City and state officials have put out the welcome mat. We give them millions of dollars in tax incentives, and they give us vague promises in return. Just today, I heard NPR highlighting a small community in Missouri that forced the withdrawal of the developers there, for now. The risk to the community far outweighed the promised benefits from the developer. The investment in this industry is not sustainable in either money or resources. And if you live in close proximity to a hyper data center, as the city wants our neighborhoods to do, the very reason we moved here 40 years ago is gone. Put data centers in their place, not in residential neighborhoods.